Good afternoon, and welcome to the Markstrat Performance Review for Team Stampede in the Apple industry. I played this game solo, so the team members are simply Robert Smithline. That's me. Let's start by discussing the overall firm performance. I won Markstrat, so performance was pretty good. And by pretty much every metric, we won the game. We had the highest SPI by a wide margin. We had the top product in each segment, and we had dominant overall market share. Let's start by looking at the SPI. We plateaued on SPI at around 6,100, and that was the clear leader. We hope to break into the top 10 all time, but there are some variables that prevented that, and I'll go into those in some more detail in a minute. 4 out of the 5 competitors, we managed to crush below 1,000 SPI, and only Renegade managed to exceed the 1,000 SPI mark. So we controlled the market from start to finish pretty much. Now, our competitors did play pretty well. However, the early lead we attained was pretty much insurmountable for them. From period 2 on, we had triple the next period budget that they had. So we managed to leverage that position to maintain dominance throughout the entire game. Now, you have to still play well throughout the entire simulation, but once you have a big advantage in budget, you can crush the competition with your increased spending. When you look at market share overall, from period 4 on, we pretty much had complete dominance. We hovered about 67% market share most of the time, and we weren't able to break through the plateau to own more market share, but I can't imagine owning much more than 70% market share overall. People will buy certain products no matter how bad they are sometimes, and just through the randomness of the game, people will buy a certain number of our competitors' products, and if they each have 5% market share overall, there's 25% market share right there. So I'm pretty happy with the 67% market share overall. We might have been able to get a bit higher towards the end, but 67% is a pretty good place. When you look at the market share by product, you can see our products dominate the market. Soft and Solo, in the 2 largest segments, of course, have a massive market share, and on their own, they're over 50% of the market. But you also see Soar and Soul, which dominate their segments as well, are also in the top 7. Sock is down a bit further, but that was the smallest market, Explorers, and they had almost 50% market share there. Overall, our products dominated the market. When you look at each individual's brand performance, they're the leaders in each of their segments. Sock is the leader in the Explorer segment. We ended up at 44.8%, but we had a high of almost 60%. We only really launched this product because we had the spare money to invest the R&D in it. We spent $3 million to launch the product, and no one else was competing there. This is the smallest segment, and it was a shrinking segment, so it was very unattractive, and no one else really competed there. Loot managed to be able to pick up a 20% market share just by being close to some of the ideals. And if we invested it all in this segment, we would have easily had an 80% market share. The Shopper segment is the biggest segment with the largest margin overall. And we had a high of almost 90% market share here. And this is one of the things that really is unclear about why we didn't do better in this segment. I'll talk about this a bit more later, but we ended up at 57.9% market share, which is still pretty dominant, but we really actually expected to do better than that. And that's really where we lost the SPI we needed to crack the top 10 in the Shopper segment. The Professional segment, we ended up 47.1%, which is just a hair behind Rock at 48.7%. We actually were the market leader here in period 7, but we abandoned this segment to invest heavily in the Shoppers and Saver segments for the final period. We really made a push there to own those 2 segments since they were triple the size of each of the other segments to increase their SPI. And the high earner segment, we ended up at 36.9% for Sold, which is the market leader there, but we also had a high of about 60% market share there. And finally, the Saver segment. We dominated this segment throughout. We ended up at 79.2% market share, and I think our high was only around 82%, so we dominated throughout pretty much there. When we look at this, our performance within each segment, you can see the Shopper segment, we dominated throughout, but there was a setback in periods 7 and 8 where we lost market share. As we looked into the details for this, to be frank, we couldn't figure out why. We had the best product as far as ideals and perceived ideals compared to each of the other products. We had double the advertising budget, double the commercial budget, and we were actually the only product in the entire segment to correctly predict the ideal price, all as far as perception, all 3 periods. Yet we steadily lost market share. That's the reason we didn't dominate more in the game and get our SPI closer to 7,000. For some mystifying reason, we did not increase our market share here, which is what we expected. When we look at the saver segment, we really only had one competitor there, Row Race, and we dominated it throughout. The initial market leader, Most, we managed to pass early and crush them down so much they actually abandoned the product in period 8. And we hovered around 80% market share throughout. On the professional segment, as soon as we were able to finally launch our product in period 3 and invest in it, we managed to get around 55% market share and dominated there. We pretty much abandoned it towards the end to invest in shoppers and savers, and it gave Rock a chance to win some of the market share back, and they just got ahead of us in period 8. In the higher earner segment, you can see we achieved dominance in period 4 and we're close second place and would have moved up from there. But in period 5, we made one of our mistakes. We messed up our advertising a bit that period, and our perceptual advertising, instead of putting the ideals in, we put our current metrics in for how we advertise. So we spent something like $2 million convincing people we were not ideal and lost a big chunk of market share. We did earn it back in period 6 and 7. And achieved a 60% market share in period 7. And we pretty much abandoned it in period 8 to invest in shoppers and segments and lost some market share, but ended up still number 1 in the segment. And finally, the Explorer segment. We didn't invest much here, and we didn't really have to. We dominated the segment. We were the only product that even came close to matching ideals. Loop started to win some share at the end, but with any investment at all, we could have had an 80% market share here. Now, as you look at the segment performance, you can see our competition actually did not do a terrible job. Start by looking at the performance and the economy metric from the MDS. You can see in the professional segment, Rock was our competitor, and we managed to do better to match the ideals than they did. We were both pretty close. In the higher earner segment, you can see Sold is the only one within the bubble. And we had 3 competitors, Toes, Nova, and Move. And they were clustered pretty closely around it, and they were actually making some inroads. In the Explorer segment, we really didn't have any competitors. Sock was the only one, but Loop was kind of out there. I mean, that product isn't really close to any segment's ideals, but it's close enough to Explorers where it won a bit of market share. In the Saver segment, our only real competitor there was Row Race, and they were getting pretty close to the ideal as well. We definitely did better on convenience than they did, though. And finally, Shopper segment. This was the battleground segment. Everyone had a product here. This is the most attractive segment in the game, and we did the best about targeting ideals. We're the only one within the circle for all of them. But you can see everyone's clustered pretty closely around it. They all created products that were closely enough matched to the ideal to stay in the range of the Shopper segment, and they eventually did manage to chip away some market share from us and get us down to 60%. The key to success in this game, well, I think the game is won and lost in period 1. That's where we made the moves we had to make to achieve dominance. We invested in our 2 core products to make them almost exactly to the ideals. And the key to doing well there is correctly extrapolating the ideal values from the semantic measures. And that's critical to making your product ideal in the beginning. You could win a very big market share very quickly there. And one of the biggest gambles we took was after we redesigned our product, we actually tripled production for those products and ended up with no inventory. We actually exactly predicted what we needed to produce. And every single period, we adjusted our price. Price is the only element in the semantic scales that does not need a product to redesign or change. So we changed our price every single period and managed almost every time correctly predict the ideal price perception, and we stay at the ideal for almost every product. Another key to success is that you need to be able to predict competitors' actions from the reports. There's a lot you can infer from the reports about what competitors are doing, what they're planning to do. And you got to read between the lines a bit, and you can anticipate their actions and counter them. It's also really critical to target one segment per product. I saw a bit of a scattered effort on some products of our competitors where they were investing in multiple segments with their advertising dollars. You got to focus your advertising dollars in just one segment per product and build that product towards that segment's ideals. If you try and do a half-measure job for two segments, you'll underperform in both. Target one segment per product and you'll do much better. And you can't just sit on your laurels once you've achieved a dominant market share. You have to redesign your products at least every 3 periods. Almost every measure in the semantic scales moves and continues to move. You can predict where they're going pretty easily. And we only redesigned our products twice throughout this game because we redesigned them once in the beginning in period 2 and 3, and a second time around period 6 and 7. If the game went on longer, we would have redesigned it once more to stay in line with ideals. There's only so far you can move perceptions away from the reality of your product, and if ideals have moved a lot, then you have to redesign your product to get more in line with the ideals. What did we do differently? The 2 major mistakes there were not taking the loan in period 2. That was critical. We misread the rules and thought it was period 3, and this delayed entry into the professionals and higher earner segment by a period, and allowed our competitors to build a few barriers to entry. I mean, we eventually took over those segments anyway, but it delayed it a bit. And the error we made in perceptual marketing for that key product in period 5 was something we wish we could fix as well. The key factors of simulation and what this simulation is supposed to teach you is really about the 4 Ps and the STP triumvirate: segmentation, targeting, and positioning. There are 5 clear segments in this simulation, and you have to decide which segments you want to target and position your products appropriately within each one of those segments. Your products have to be built towards customer ideals, and their perception of your product is far more important than the reality of your product. The price is, in reality, as well as in the simulation, the most important aspect when people are deciding which products they want to purchase. And this game did a very good job of reinforcing that fact. And place, the distribution was very well done in the game. I like the fact that the sizes of each distribution channel changed throughout the game, as well as customers' buying preferences within each segment for the distribution channels they prefer kept changing. It was very interesting to track that and reallocate your commercial team on a regular basis to address how the market has moved. And finally, promotion. I mean, promotion is one of the most important elements of marketing because this is how your product is seen by customers. This is how you change perceptions of your product. This is how you guide the marketplace about how you want them to see your product. And there were a lot of tools that you could use in the game to change perception of your product and have the ideals more closely match what your product really is. Something I would like to see change in the game is have a few more knobs to turn in the advertising segment. I think it was a little bit narrow. I understand novices, this sort of thing, probably find it very complex, but I would love to find a way to decide how much you want to spend on each element of perceptual advertising you want to do some general and some perceptual, and maybe have some ways to add some variability within each perception about how you're changing it. I think overall they did a very good job with it, and probably at the level it should be for the level of people taking this simulation, but I would have loved to be able to do a whole lot more with the promotion section. Well, I want to thank you very much for seeing my review of Markstrat simulation and how we performed. I really enjoyed this simulation, and I still wish that there was some sort of league that I can continue to play this simulation. I became obsessed with it. I spent endless hours going over the reports in endless detail to make sure our performance was where it should be. I really enjoyed this class, and I want to thank you again for it. And I wish you a very happy holiday, and I wish I could see you again next semester. All right, thank you very much, Professor. Take care.